In the vast expanse of the galaxy, the Galactic Council reigned supreme. It was an alliance of the most advanced and powerful civilizations, each with its own unique strengths and abilities. The Council's purpose was to maintain peace, promote trade, and ensure the prosperity of all its member species. Earth, on the other hand, was considered a primitive and underdeveloped planet by the Council. Its inhabitants, humans, were seen as a young and naive species, still struggling to find their place in the universe. The Council had been observing Earth for centuries, waiting for the right moment to make contact and bring them into the fold. However, the Council's perception of Earth was about to change drastically. In a secret meeting, the leaders of the Council gathered to discuss a matter of great importance. They had discovered that Earth possessed a wealth of resources that could greatly benefit their own civilizations. The planet was rich in minerals, water, and even a rare element that could revolutionize their technology. The Council members debated amongst themselves, weighing the pros and cons of invading Earth. Some argued that it was their right to take what they needed, as they were the superior species. Others cautioned against such an action, warning that it could lead to unforeseen consequences. In the end, the Council's greed and arrogance won out. They decided to launch a full-scale invasion of Earth, believing that the primitive humans would be no match for their advanced technology and superior intellect. The invasion began with a massive fleet of ships descending upon Earth's skies. The humans, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of alien spacecraft, panicked and scrambled to defend themselves. But their weapons were no match for the Council's advanced technology, and the invaders quickly gained the upper hand. As the Council's forces swept across the planet, they encountered little resistance. The humans were no match for the invaders' superior firepower and technology, and many of them fled in terror. The Council's leaders watched with satisfaction as their troops easily conquered one city after another, securing the planet's resources for their own use. But little did they know that the humans were not as weak and helpless as they appeared. Among the chaos and destruction, a group of brave individuals had begun to organize a resistance movement. Led by a brilliant strategist named Jack, they were determined to fight back against the invaders and protect their planet at all costs. Jack had always been fascinated by military history and strategy, and he had spent years studying the tactics of great generals and leaders from Earth's past. He knew that the only way to defeat the invaders was to outsmart them, to use their own arrogance and overconfidence against them. As the Council's forces continued their advance, Jack and his team worked tirelessly to gather intelligence on the invaders' weaknesses and vulnerabilities. They studied the Council's technology, looking for any flaws or weaknesses that they could exploit. And then, just when all hope seemed lost, Jack came up with a plan. It was a risky gambit, but he knew that it was their only chance to turn the tide of the war. He gathered his team and explained his strategy, outlining the steps they would need to take to defeat the invaders and save their planet. The team listened intently, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. They knew that the fate of Earth rested on their shoulders, and they were ready to do whatever it took to protect their home. As the Council's forces continued their march across the planet, unaware of the resistance that was forming against them, Jack and his team prepared to put their plan into action. They knew that the coming days would be filled with danger and uncertainty, but they were determined to fight until their last breath. The stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. The Council, in their arrogance, had underestimated the strength and resilience of the human spirit. And now, they were about to learn the true meaning of Earth's vicious revenge. As the Galactic Council's forces continued their relentless invasion of Earth, the humans found themselves in a desperate situation. Cities lay in ruins, and the death toll mounted with each passing day. The Council's advanced weaponry and technology seemed unstoppable, and many humans began to lose hope. However, in the midst of the chaos, a small group of resistance fighters led by Jack refused to give up. They had been working tirelessly to gather intelligence on the invaders and develop a plan to fight back. Jack, a brilliant strategist with a keen understanding of military tactics, had identified a weakness in the Council's defenses that they could exploit. The plan was simple but daring. The Resistance would launch a series of coordinated attacks on key Council outposts, using guerrilla tactics to catch the invaders off guard. At the same time, they would hack into the Council's communication network and spread disinformation, sowing confusion and discord among the enemy ranks. To accomplish this, Jack had assembled a team of the best and brightest minds from across the planet. There was Maria, a skilled hacker who could infiltrate even the most secure networks. Lee, a master of disguise who could blend in with any crowd. And Tarek, a brilliant engineer who had been working on a secret weapon that could turn the tide of the war. As the Resistance put their plan into motion, the Council's forces were caught completely off guard. The humans struck swiftly and silently, taking out key targets with surgical precision. The invaders, who had grown complacent in their belief that Earth was a primitive and helpless planet, were stunned by the sudden turn of events. At the same time, Maria and her team of hackers launched a devastating cyber attack on the Council's communication network. False orders and conflicting reports began to flood the invaders' channels, causing confusion and chaos among their ranks. The Council's once unified front began to crumble as individual units and factions turned on each other in the fog of war. As the fighting intensified, Tarek unveiled his secret weapon, a powerful electromagnetic pulse, EMP device that could disable the Council's advanced technology. The Resistance had managed to smuggle the device into the heart of the invaders' main command center, and when they detonated it, the results were catastrophic. The Council's ships and weapons suddenly went dark as the EMP fried their circuitry. The invaders, who had relied so heavily on their advanced technology, were left vulnerable and exposed. The humans, armed with more traditional weapons and aided by their knowledge of the terrain, began to push back against the disoriented and disorganized enemy. The tide of the war had turned, and the Council's forces were in full retreat. The humans, emboldened by their victory, pursued the invaders relentlessly, driving them back to their landing zones and forcing them to abandon their plans for conquest. As the dust settled, the full extent of the Council's defeat became clear. Their once mighty fleet lay in ruins, and their soldiers were scattered and demoralized. The humans, who had once been dismissed as a primitive and insignificant species, had proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with. In the aftermath of the battle, Jack and his team were hailed as heroes. They had done the impossible, defeating a technologically superior enemy through sheer grit, determination, and ingenuity. The Resistance had shown that the human spirit was a force to be reckoned with, and that even the most advanced civilizations could be brought to their knees by the power of unity and purpose. As the Council's remaining forces retreated back to their own worlds, the humans began the long and difficult process of rebuilding. They knew that the road ahead would be hard, but they also knew that they had the strength and resilience to overcome any obstacle. They had proven to the galaxy that Earth was not a planet to be underestimated, and that the human race would never again be subjugated by any outside force. With a newfound sense of pride and purpose, the humans looked to the stars, ready to take their place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. They had earned their place through blood and sacrifice, and they would never again be content to sit on the sidelines of history. Earth had shown its vicious revenge, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council, still reeling from their unexpected defeat at the hands of the humans, regrouped on their home planets to assess the situation. They had underestimated the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the Earthlings, a mistake they were determined not to make again. The Council's leaders, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves questioning their own abilities. They had never encountered a species like the humans before, one that could not only resist their advanced technology, but also turn it against them. As they analyzed the battle reports and intelligence gathered by their spies, the Council began to realize the true extent of their mistake. The humans, far from being a primitive and underdeveloped species, had made incredible advancements in technology and warfare. The Council's spies reported that the humans had developed a vast network of underground bunkers and strongholds, each one equipped with the latest in defensive technology. They had also managed to reverse engineer some of the Council's own weapons, creating their own versions that were even more powerful and efficient. But perhaps the most shocking revelation was the discovery of Earth's secret alliance with other planets in the galaxy. The humans had been quietly building relationships with other species, sharing knowledge and resources in preparation for the inevitable confrontation with the Council. These alliances had proven invaluable in the battle against the invaders, with the humans' allies providing crucial support and intelligence. The Council, who had always viewed themselves as the supreme power in the galaxy, were shocked to find that they had been outmaneuvered by a seemingly inferior species. As the Council struggled to come to terms with their defeat, the humans were already planning their next move. Jack, the brilliant strategist who had led the resistance to victory, knew that the Council would not give up easily. He and his team worked tirelessly to strengthen Earth's defenses and build new alliances with other planets. One of Jack's key allies was a mysterious figure known only as the Shadow. The Shadow was a master of espionage and infiltration, able to gather intelligence on the Council's movements and plans without ever being detected. With the Shadow's help, Jack was able to stay one step ahead of the Council, anticipating their every move and countering it with his own carefully planned strategies. The humans' alliance with the Shadow and other key players in the galaxy gave them a crucial advantage in the ongoing war against the Council. As the conflict escalated, the Council's forces launched a series of desperate attacks on Earth and its allies. But each time, they were met with fierce resistance and unexpected counterattacks. The humans' advanced technology and tactical skills, combined with the support of their allies, made them a formidable opponent. In one particularly brutal battle, the Council's forces managed to breach the defenses of one of Earth's major cities. The invaders poured into the streets, confident that they would finally crush the human resistance once and for all. But as they advanced deeper into the city, they found themselves facing a new and terrifying weapon, a swarm of tiny, AI-controlled drones that could move with lightning speed and precision. The drones, each one no larger than an insect, swarmed over the invaders, disabling their weapons and communications with targeted electromagnetic pulses. The Council's forces, unable to fight back against the invisible enemy, were quickly overwhelmed. They retreated in disarray, leaving behind a trail of destroyed equipment and demoralized soldiers. The victory was a turning point in the war, one that cemented Earth's reputation as a force to be reckoned with. The Council, once so confident in their own superiority, were now on the defensive, struggling to maintain their grip on the galaxy. As the war raged on, it became clear that the Council had underestimated not only the humans' technological prowess, but also their determination and unity. The Earthlings, once divided and scattered, had come together as one to face a common enemy. They had shown the galaxy that they were not a species to be trifled with, and that they would fight to the bitter end to protect their home and their way of life. The Council, their arrogance and overconfidence shattered, could only watch in dismay as the humans continued to gain ground. They had awakened a sleeping giant, and now they would have to face the consequences of their actions. Earth's vicious revenge was far from over, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the war between Earth and the Galactic Council raged on, the humans continued to gain ground thanks to their resourcefulness, determination, and the leadership of their brilliant strategist, Jack. The Council, once so confident in their superiority, found themselves constantly outmaneuvered by the very species they had sought to conquer. Jack's tactical skills were put to the test as the Council launched a series of desperate counterattacks, trying to regain the upper hand. But each time, Jack was able to anticipate their moves and devise a plan to counter them. He worked tirelessly, poring over maps and intelligence reports, looking for any weakness in the Council's defenses that could be exploited. One of Jack's most daring plans involved infiltrating the Council's main command center and planting a virus in their computer systems. The virus, designed by Earth's top programmers, was intended to disable the Council's weapons and communications, leaving them vulnerable to attack. To carry out the mission, Jack assembled a team of his most trusted operatives, each one highly skilled in infiltration and sabotage. Among them was Sarah, a master hacker who had been instrumental in disabling the Council's technology during the Battle of Earth. The team set out under cover of darkness, using stealth technology to avoid detection by the Council's sensors. They managed to breach the command center's defenses and make their way to the central computer core, where Sarah went to work planting the virus. But just as they were about to make their escape, they were discovered by a group of Council guards. A fierce firefight ensued, with Jack and his team using every trick in their arsenal to hold off the enemy. In the end, they managed to escape, but not before suffering heavy casualties. The virus, however, had been successfully planted, and within hours, the Council's systems began to fail. Their ships and weapons malfunctioned, leaving them defenseless against the human counterattack. Earth's forces, seizing the opportunity, launched a massive offensive, pushing the Council back on all fronts. As the tide of the war turned in Earth's favor, Jack's reputation as a brilliant strategist and leader grew. He became a symbol of hope for the human race, a figure who had dared to stand up to the Council and had emerged victorious. But Jack knew that the war was far from over. The Council, despite their losses, still had vast resources and manpower at their disposal. They would not give up easily, and Jack knew that he would have to keep pushing forward if Earth was to have any chance of victory. To that end, Jack began to forge new alliances with other species who had been oppressed by the Council. He reached out to the leaders of these worlds, offering them a chance to join forces with Earth and fight back against their common enemy. Many of these species were hesitant at first, fearful of the Council's retribution. But as word of Earth's victories spread, more and more began to rally to Jack's cause. They saw in him a leader who could guide them to freedom and help them reclaim their rightful place in the galaxy. With each new ally, Earth's forces grew stronger and more diverse. They began to launch coordinated attacks on the Council's strongholds, using a combination of human ingenuity and alien technology to overcome their defenses. The Council, seeing their empire crumbling around them, grew increasingly desperate. They resorted to ever more brutal tactics, using civilian populations as human shields and unleashing weapons of mass destruction on innocent worlds. But even in the face of such atrocities, Jack and his allies refused to back down. They fought on, driven by a sense of justice and a belief in the power of unity. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they also knew that they had no choice but to keep fighting if they were to have any hope of building a better future for all species. As the war entered its final stages, Jack began to look ahead to the challenges that would come after the fighting was over. He knew that rebuilding the galaxy would be a monumental task, one that would require the cooperation and goodwill of all species. But he also knew that if anyone could do it, it was the people of Earth. They had shown time and again that they were a force to be reckoned with, a species that could overcome any obstacle through sheer determination and ingenuity. With Jack at the helm, they would lead the charge into a new era of peace and prosperity for all. As the war between Earth and the Galactic Council reached its climax, the battles became increasingly fierce and desperate. The Council, despite their losses, refused to surrender, pouring all of their remaining resources into a final, all-out assault on Earth and its allies. The fighting raged across multiple fronts, with Earth's forces engaging the Council's ships and ground troops in a series of brutal engagements. The skies above Earth were filled with the flashes of laser fire and the explosions of damaged ships, while on the ground, soldiers from both sides clashed in hand-to-hand combat. Leading the charge for Earth was Jack, the brilliant strategist who had guided the human resistance from the very beginning. He was everywhere at once, directing his troops and allies with a calm and steady hand, even in the face of overwhelming odds. One of the most pivotal battles of the war took place on the planet Zephyrus, a key Council stronghold that had long been a thorn in the side of the human resistance. Jack knew that if they could take Zephyrus, it would deal a crushing blow to the Council's morale and supply lines. To that end, he deployed a massive force of human and allied troops to the planet's surface, while a fleet of Earth's most advanced warships engaged the Council's forces in orbit. The fighting was intense and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. But thanks to Jack's strategic planning and the bravery of his soldiers, Earth's forces managed to gain a foothold on the planet's surface. They pushed forward, inch by inch, toward the Council's main command center, determined to capture it at any cost. As the battle raged on, the Council's leadership began to realize that they were losing the war. They had underestimated the humans and their allies, and now they were paying the price for their arrogance. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, the Council's leaders reached out to Jack, offering to negotiate a truce. They promised to withdraw their forces from Earth and its allied worlds, in exchange for a guarantee of their own safety and a share of the resources they had originally sought to plunder. But Jack, knowing that the Council could not be trusted, flatly refused their offer. He knew that the only way to ensure a lasting peace was to defeat the Council utterly and completely, to leave them no choice but to surrender unconditionally. And so the fighting continued, with Earth's forces pushing ever closer to victory. In the end, it was the Battle of Zephyrus that proved to be the turning point. After days of intense fighting, Jack's troops finally managed to capture the Council's command center, forcing their leaders to flee the planet in disgrace. With Zephyrus in Earth's hands, the Council's supply lines were cut, and their forces began to falter. One by one, their remaining strongholds fell, until at last, they had no choice but to sue for peace. But even as the Council's leaders begged for mercy, Earth's forces showed none. They demanded nothing less than total surrender, insisting that the Council be held accountable for their crimes against the galaxy. In the end, the Council had no choice but to comply. They signed a treaty of unconditional surrender, agreeing to dismantle their military and submit to the jurisdiction of a new galactic government, one led by Earth and its allies. As the news of the Council's defeat spread across the galaxy, the reaction was one of shock and disbelief. For so long, the Council had seemed invincible, a force that could never be defeated. But now, thanks to the bravery and determination of the human race, they had been brought to their knees. In the aftermath of the war, Earth and its allies set about the task of rebuilding the galaxy. They worked to establish new trade routes, to rebuild shattered infrastructure, and to bring aid to the worlds that had been ravaged by the fighting. And at the center of it all was Jack, the hero who had led Earth to victory against impossible odds. He became a symbol of hope and inspiration for people across the galaxy, a reminder that even the most powerful forces could be defeated if enough people stood together. As the galaxy began to heal, Jack knew that there would be new challenges ahead. But he also knew that Earth and its allies would face those challenges head-on, just as they had faced the Council. Together, they would build a new future, one of peace, prosperity, and justice for all. As the dust settled from the final battles of the war, Earth and its allies found themselves in a position of unprecedented power and influence in the galaxy. The Galactic Council, once the dominant force in the universe, had been brought to its knees by the very species they had sought to conquer. But even in defeat, the Council was not ready to give up. They retreated to their few remaining strongholds, licking their wounds and plotting their revenge. They knew that they could not defeat Earth and its allies in open combat, but they believed that they could still win the war through subterfuge and sabotage. To that end, they began to secretly funnel resources and weapons to rebel groups on planets that had allied themselves with Earth. They hoped to foment unrest and chaos, to turn Earth's own allies against them and weaken them from within. But Jack and his team were not about to let that happen. They had come too far and sacrificed too much to let the Council snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. They began to work tirelessly to root out the Council's agents and put an end to their schemes. One of the key turning points in this new phase of the war came on the planet Nexus, a vital hub of trade and commerce that had long been a Council stronghold. Earth's forces had managed to capture the planet in the final days of the war, But now the Council was determined to take it back. To that end, they launched a massive covert operation, infiltrating the planet's government and military with their own agents. They planned to stage a coup, to overthrow the Earth-allied government, and seize control of the planet's resources and infrastructure. But Jack and his team were one step ahead of them. They had been monitoring the situation on Nexus closely, and they had already put in place a network of their own agents and informants. When the Council made their move, Earth's forces were ready and waiting. The battle for Nexus was fierce and bloody, with both sides employing every trick in their arsenal. The Council's agents were well-trained and well-equipped, but they were no match for the combined might of Earth's forces and their allies. In the end, the Council's operation was exposed and their agents were rooted out. The Earth-allied government was restored to power, and the Council was dealt yet another crushing defeat. But the war was far from over. The Council, desperate and increasingly erratic, began to resort to even more extreme tactics. They unleashed a devastating computer virus that targeted Earth's military and civilian infrastructure, hoping to cripple their ability to fight back. The virus was unlike anything Earth's experts had ever seen before, a marvel of advanced technology and malicious code. It spread like wildfire through Earth's networks, shutting down power grids, transportation systems, and communication channels. For a moment, it seemed as though the Council might actually succeed in their goal of bringing Earth to its knees. But once again, they had underestimated the resilience and ingenuity of the human spirit. Earth's top programmers and engineers worked around the clock to develop a countermeasure to the virus, a way to purge it from their systems and restore functionality. It was a race against time, with the fate of the planet hanging in the balance. In the end, they succeeded. The virus was neutralized and Earth's infrastructure was brought back online. The Council's gambit had failed, and they were left weaker and more isolated than ever before. As the Council's options dwindled, they became increasingly desperate and unpredictable. They lashed out with weapons of mass destruction, targeting civilian populations on Earth and its allied worlds. They seemed determined to take as many innocent lives as possible, to make Earth pay for their humiliation. But Earth's forces, led by Jack and his team, refused to sink to their level. They responded with surgical strikes and precision attacks, targeting only military targets and doing everything in their power to minimize civilian casualties. In the end, it was this moral high ground that proved to be the Council's undoing. As word of their atrocities spread, even their few remaining allies began to turn against them. They found themselves alone and friendless, facing the full might of a united galaxy. And so, at long last, the Council was brought to its knees. Its leaders were captured and put on trial for their crimes, and its military was disbanded and disarmed. The galaxy had been saved, and a new era of peace and prosperity was set to begin. As the Galactic Council's power crumbled and their forces retreated, Earth and its allies knew that the final battle was at hand. They had pushed the Council to the brink of defeat, but they also knew that their enemy was still dangerous and unpredictable. Jack, the brilliant strategist who had led Earth's forces to victory time and again, began to formulate a plan for the final assault. He knew that the Council's last remaining stronghold was a heavily fortified planet called Terminus, a world that had been transformed into a vast military complex. To take Terminus would require a massive coordinated attack, one that would involve every ship and soldier at Earth's disposal. It would be a gamble, but Jack knew that it was the only way to end the war once and for all. As Earth's forces gathered for the final push, the Council's leadership was in disarray. They had been beaten back at every turn, and they knew that their chances of victory were slim. Some wanted to surrender, to seek a negotiated peace before it was too late. But others, driven by pride and a thirst for revenge, refused to give up. In the end, it was the latter group that won out. The Council's forces on Terminus were ordered to fight to the last man, to make Earth pay a heavy price for their victory. And so, the final battle began. Earth's ships and soldiers descended on Terminus like a swarm of angry bees, determined to break through the Council's defenses and bring an end to their tyranny. The fighting was intense and brutal, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The Council's forces fought with the desperation of cornered animals, using every weapon and tactic at their disposal to hold back the tide of Earth's advance. But in the end, it was not enough. Earth's forces, driven by a righteous fury and a determination to see justice done, broke through the Council's lines and stormed their command center. There, in the heart of the enemy's stronghold, Jack and his team confronted the Council's leaders face to face. They demanded their surrender, offering them one last chance to end the war peacefully. But the Council's leaders, blinded by their own arrogance and hubris, refused. They lashed out with a final desperate attack, hoping to take as many of Earth's soldiers with them as possible. It was a futile gesture. Jack and his team fought back with skill and bravery, overwhelming the Council's guards and forcing their leaders to their knees. In that moment, as the Council's leaders were taken into custody and their forces laid down their arms, the war was finally over. Earth and its allies had emerged victorious, thanks to the courage and sacrifice of countless brave men and women. The news of the Council's defeat spread like wildfire across the galaxy, sparking celebrations on countless worlds. The tyranny of the Council had been broken, and a new era of freedom and self-determination had begun. But even in victory, Jack and his team knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The galaxy had been ravaged by war, and there was much work to be done to rebuild and heal the wounds of conflict. Earth, as the leader of the victorious alliance, took on the task of helping to guide the galaxy into a new age of peace and prosperity. They worked tirelessly to establish new trade routes, to rebuild shattered infrastructure, and to bring aid to the worlds that had been caught in the crossfire of the war. And at the center of it all was Jack, the hero who had led Earth to victory against impossible odds. He became a symbol of hope and inspiration for people across the galaxy, a living embodiment of the power of courage and determination. As the galaxy began to heal and rebuild, Jack knew that there would be challenges ahead. There would be new threats to face, new enemies to confront. But he also knew that Earth and its allies would face those challenges head-on, just as they had faced the Council. Together, they would build a new galaxy, one founded on the principles of justice, equality, and peace, and they would do it with the same bravery, determination, and unity that had carried them to victory against the Council. The war was over, but the struggle for a better future had only just begun. And Earth, led by Jack and all those who had fought and sacrificed for the cause, would be at the forefront of that struggle, a shining beacon of hope for all the peoples of the galaxy. In the aftermath of the Galactic War, Earth found itself in a position of unparalleled influence and power. As the leader of the alliance that had defeated the tyrannical Galactic Council, Earth was looked to as a beacon of hope and stability in a galaxy still reeling from the ravages of conflict. But with great power came great responsibility, and Earth's leaders knew that they could not rest on their laurels. The galaxy was in desperate need of rebuilding and healing, and it would fall to Earth to lead the way. To that end, Earth's government established a new galactic alliance, a federation of worlds dedicated to promoting peace, prosperity, and cooperation among all sentient beings. The alliance would be founded on the principles of democracy, equality, and the rule of law, and it would work tirelessly to ensure that those principles were upheld across the galaxy. At the head of this new alliance was Jack, the hero who had led Earth to victory in the war. He was appointed as the alliance's first prime minister, tasked with guiding the galaxy into a new era of unity and progress. Jack knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The scars of the war ran deep, and there were many who still harbored resentment and mistrust towards Earth and its allies. But he also knew that the only way forward was through dialogue, diplomacy, and a willingness to work together towards a common goal. Under Jack's leadership, the alliance began the long and difficult process of rebuilding the galaxy. They sent aid and resources to war-torn worlds, helping to rebuild shattered infrastructure and provide for the basic needs of their people. They worked to establish new trade routes and economic partnerships, fostering a sense of interdependence and cooperation among the galaxy's many worlds. But perhaps most importantly, the Alliance worked to promote a new sense of galactic identity and unity. They encouraged cultural exchange and understanding, sponsoring programs that brought people from different worlds together to learn from and appreciate one another. They celebrated diversity and promoted equality, ensuring that all sentient beings were treated with the respect and dignity they deserved. As the years passed, the galaxy began to heal and prosper under the guidance of the Alliance. New technologies and discoveries were made, pushing the boundaries of what was possible and opening up new frontiers for exploration and growth. But even as the galaxy entered a new golden age, Jack and the Alliance leadership knew that there would always be challenges to face. There would be those who sought to sow discord and division, who would try to undermine the hard-won peace and stability that had been achieved. To counter these threats, the Alliance established a new galactic defense force, a military organization dedicated to preserving the peace and protecting the innocent. The Defense Force was made up of the best and brightest from across the galaxy, individuals who had proven themselves in the crucible of war and who were committed to using their skills and abilities for the greater good. As the Alliance continued to grow and evolve, Jack began to step back from his role as Prime Minister. He knew that the time had come for a new generation of leaders to take the reins, to build upon the foundation that he and his contemporaries had laid. But even as he retreated from the public eye, Jack's legacy continued to inspire and guide the galaxy. He had shown that even in the darkest of times, hope and courage could prevail, that by working together, anything was possible. And so, as the galaxy looked to the future, it did so with a sense of optimism and purpose. There would be challenges and obstacles to overcome, but there would also be opportunities and possibilities. And with the guidance of the Alliance and the memory of heroes like Jack, the galaxy would continue to move forward, to build a better and brighter tomorrow for all who called it home. Years turned to decades and decades to centuries, but the legacy of Earth and its allies lived on. The galaxy had been forever changed by their actions, and their story would be told and retold for generations to come. And though the names and faces might change, the spirit of unity, courage, and hope that had carried them to victory against the Council would endure, a shining beacon of light in a vast and wondrous universe.